Have you ever wondered why, despite your best efforts, your reality refuses to change? You've repeated affirmations, visualized your dream life, and tried to stay positive. Yet somehow, the same patterns keep showing up. Most people believe the biggest obstacle to manifestation is doubt or fear. But what if that's not true? What if the real obstacle is something so subtle that you don't even realize it's there? It's what we can call the quantum knot, an invisible conflict between what your conscious mind wants and what your nervous system still believes is safe. You may genuinely desire success, abundance, love, or freedom. But if your body is still operating from stress, urgency, fear, or lack, you're sending two completely different messages at the same time. Your thoughts say, "I'm ready." Your nervous system whispers, "I'm not safe yet." And according to modern neuroscience, your brain always prioritizes what feels familiar over what merely sounds exciting. That's why people often stay stuck, even after years of positive thinking. The problem isn't your desire. The problem is internal contradiction. From the perspective of quantum manifestation, reality doesn't respond to wishes alone. It responds to coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, identity, and nervous system all communicate the same message, change becomes natural. But when those signals conflict with each other, reality continues reflecting the old pattern, because that's the strongest signal being broadcast. Imagine trying to drive a car while pressing both the accelerator and the brake. No matter how powerful the engine is, the car won't move very far. That's exactly what happens when your conscious goals and subconscious programming are moving in opposite directions. This isn't failure, it's simply misalignment. And here's the good news. The quantum knot isn't something you need to fight. It isn't a punishment, and it isn't proof that you're broken. It's simply a protective pattern your nervous system developed to keep you safe based on past experiences. The moment you understand that, everything begins to change. And because real manifestation doesn't start by forcing better thoughts, it begins by creating inner harmony. When your body finally feels safe enough to release old survival patterns, your mind stops resisting the future you've been asking for. And that's when reality finally has a clear signal to respond to. The quantum knot doesn't exist because you lack confidence or discipline. It exists because your nervous system is still protecting you, using patterns that once helped you survive mind. Your conscious mind may be focused on creating a better future, but your body is still responding to yesterday's experiences. This is where many manifestation teachings miss the point. They focus almost entirely on changing thoughts, while ignoring the deeper system that actually controls your reactions way. Your nervous system decides what feels safe, long before your conscious mind gets involved. When it has spent years expecting struggle, rejection, or disappointment, it naturally treats uncertainty as a threat, even when that uncertainty represents the very future you've been asking for it to. That is why positive thinking alone often feels exhausting. You're asking your mind to move forward while your body quietly pulls you back. It's like trying to build a new house on an unstable foundation. No matter how beautiful the design is, it won't last until the foundation is strengthened. Neuroscience supports this idea. When we're trapped in chronic stress, the brain stays in survival mode. Instead of looking for new possibilities, it becomes focused on predicting problems and avoiding risks. It repeats familiar emotional patterns because familiarity feels safer than change. As a result, you keep recreating the same experiences, not because you want them, but because your system expects them. This is why many people feel stuck right before a major breakthrough. They're not moving backward. Their nervous system is simply learning that it's finally safe to let go of the old identity. Real transformation begins the moment you stop fighting yourself. Instead of forcing belief, you create safety instead. Instead of chasing outcomes, you calm the system, producing resistance. As your body relaxes, your thoughts naturally become clearer, your emotions become more stable, your decisions become less reactive, and your identity slowly begins to shift. Manifestation is no longer about convincing yourself. It's about becoming internally consistent. When your thoughts, emotions, body, and identity start working together instead of against each other, the signal you send into the world becomes clear. And clarity is far more powerful than intensity. You don't need to think harder. You don't need to visualize longer. You simply need to stop broadcasting two different realities at the same time. Because the moment internal conflict begins to dissolve, external reality finally has room to change. As your nervous system begins to settle, another challenge quietly appears. It's called attachment. Not the desire itself, but the belief that your happiness, peace, or sense of worth depends on getting what you want. This is where many people unknowingly hold themselves back. You tell yourself, "I'll finally feel complete when this happens." But in doing so, you're sending a powerful message that something is missing right now. That feeling of incompleteness becomes your dominant signal, and reality tends to reflect the state you live in most consistently. This doesn't mean you should stop having goals. Desire is natural. The problem begins when your emotional stability depends entirely on the outcome, when every delay feels like failure, when every obstacle feels personal, when your peace disappears because the future hasn't arrived yet. That's attachment, and attachment creates tension. The more tightly you hold on, the more pressure you place on yourself. Ironically, that pressure keeps your nervous system locked in survival mode, the exact state that makes lasting change more difficult. Think about it like trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips away. But when your hands remain open, the water stays naturally. Manifestation works in much the same way. The goal isn't to stop wanting. The goal is to stop needing the outcome in order to feel whole. When your nervous system no longer depends on the future to feel safe, something remarkable happens. Your attention returns to the present. You stop obsessing over signs. You stop checking whether it's working case. You stop measuring every moment against an imagined future. Instead, you become calm, grounded, and emotionally available for whatever comes next. From a neurological perspective, this shift is powerful. Your brain spends less energy predicting problems and more energy recognizing opportunities. Your decisions become clearer. Your timing improves. You notice possibilities that anxiety previously kept hidden. This is why so many people say things finally changed when they stopped forcing them. Not because they gave up, but because they stopped resisting. The quantum knot begins to loosen the moment you stop negotiating with reality. You no longer ask, "When will it happen?" Instead, you ask, "Who am I becoming while it unfolds?" That single shift changes everything. Because real manifestation isn't about controlling life. It's about becoming someone whose inner world is already aligned with the future they're ready to receive. And when that alignment becomes your natural state, the struggle quietly disappears. The path forward no longer feels forced. It simply begins to unfold. Eventually, there comes a moment when something changes. Not outside you, but within you. You stop questioning whether you're doing enough. You stop chasing signs. You stop trying to force perfect thoughts or maintain a constant high vibration. Instead, you simply begin to live. And strangely enough, that's when life begins to respond differently. The opportunities you've been waiting for don't arrive with fireworks. They appear quietly. The right conversation happens at the right time. A new opportunity feels obvious instead of unexpected. Decisions become easier because you're no longer making them from fear. This is what true alignment feels like. It's not excitement, it's stability. Your thoughts, emotions, nervous system, and identity are no longer pulling in different directions. They're finally working together. From this place, manifestation stops feeling like hard work. It becomes a natural extension of who you are. Modern neuroscience explains this beautifully. When your nervous system leaves survival mode, your brain becomes more flexible. Instead of constantly scanning for danger, it begins recognizing possibilities. Your perception changes. Your timing improves. You respond with clarity instead of reacting through fear. The external world hasn't magically changed overnight. But because you've changed internally, you begin making different choices, and different choices create different results. This is why lasting transformation rarely feels dramatic. It feels normal. The new version of you doesn't need constant motivation or reassurance. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply acts from a place of confidence and inner stability. That's the real shift. not becoming someone else, but removing the internal conflict that prevented your authentic self from leading. So if you've been feeling calmer lately, less desperate, less attached to outcomes, don't mistake that for losing your ambition. It's a sign that you're becoming emotionally free. You're no longer chasing life. You're allowing life to meet you where you are, and that's where genuine change begins. The greatest breakthrough isn't receiving everything you've asked for. It's becoming the kind of person who no longer depends on those outcomes to feel complete. Because when completeness becomes your baseline, success no longer feels distant, peace no longer feels temporary, and opportunities no longer need to be forced. They arrive naturally, because your inner world is finally aligned with the life you're ready to create. So perhaps the biggest obstacle was never outside you. It was never bad luck. It was never a lack of ability. It was simply the invisible tension between who you wanted to become and who your nervous system believed you had to be. The moment that tension dissolves, life stops resisting. Not because the universe suddenly changes its mind, but because you finally become match for the reality you've been seeking all along. The transformation was never about forcing the future. It was about freeing yourself from the past. And that's where real manifestation begins.